Hey, what is up, everybody? Welcome inside the Guilty as Charged podcast. My name is Steven, and I am your host here to do a free agency mock simulation and prediction show with my guys Tyler and Arjun as well. Arjun, we'll start with you, man. How are you doing tonight?
Doing very well. Really excited for free agency. This is like one of the best times of the year, I think, outside of the draft and the start of the season. So, really excited. Obviously, Chargers are not in a position like they were last year, but just in general, I think the NFL is really interesting at this time of the year, and I'm excited to see where players end up.
Yeah, I mean, we've gotten a pretty crazy day today from the NFL already. I'm sure we'll talk about some of the moves that were done today by, the Dolphins, the Commanders, and the New York Jets in particular. So, free agency off to a crazy start already. I love the legal tampering quotes that everybody already does, even though the deals are already done. It is what it is, but it makes it more fun. Tyler, what's up, man? How are you doing tonight?
I'm doing very well. Last time we were with Arjun, we spent an hour and 7 minutes just trying to get the dead cap or the cap from whatever it was to zero. So the fact that we have a bit more to work with now is at least a bit more fun.
Yeah, obviously we've gotten more news on the restructuring front, and I'm sure we'll discuss that. And it should be fun. So yesterday, if you missed it, Tyler and I went over some potential free agency targets, and we gave some of our thoughts on the Khalil Mack and Joey Bosa restructures. We'll see what happens. I still would imagine they expect they would cut Matt Filer, excuse me, but we'll see what happens there because they do need some more cap space to be able to operate. So. Big week ahead for the Chargers. I definitely do not expect them to go big fish hunting, like some people have suggested. People were kind of freaking out a little bit over the Jalen Ramsey thing today, and I think that was certainly a surprise. But once you saw the guaranteed money that the Dolphins would be taking on, it was pretty clear that teams like the Chargers were not going to be able to do that. So, Arjun, before we get into some of the Chargers-specific things here, what's your take on how the moves that were done today might affect the Chargers and the moves that they might have to be making and looking at with their needs at, linebacker, defensive line, and stuff like that?
Yeah, I mean, you can see it in my name. It basically Chargers are going all in for 2023. There's no way you can have four players take up 55% of the cap. That's just not sustainable. And they're all at the same position, two positions. So again, not sustainable. And initially when the Keenan and Mike restructures came out, I'm like, okay, they're probably going to be on the team in 2024. But now that I thought about it a little bit more, they're just willing to eat the dead money if you know if it comes to that in 2024. Like they're gonna have to cut at least, in my opinion, two of the guys. So I think the moves they made were definitely to create as much room as possible. This is like an all-in push for 2023. They have a solid roster on paper. Again, it's always on paper. The depth definitely isn't as good as I'd want it to be, but if everyone's healthy and they get into the playoffs and 80-90% healthy, they're definitely a team to watch out for. And I think, with improvements to the offensive scheme, the moves they made were definitely to try and get some bigger fish than what we initially thought, where normally, again, I was definitely wrong on where I thought the Chargers were going to go, but this is something that the Chargers have never done. They've never restructured this much money, right? Like this is very unprecedented for them. So I'll admit I was wrong in how I thought the restructures were going to happen, but this is something new for me that I've seen Tom Telesco do, and it's definitely something that is interesting to see. And it definitely signals that they're going to be signing some bigger free agents that they think can help their team more than just re-signing some depth guys.
Generally speaking, looking ahead to 2024, I know this is a 2023 free agency show, but what does that kind of mean when you talk about them being okay with eating that dead cap? What are sort of their options there? Because it's 142 million combined between the guys for their cap hit next year. I forget what the dead money would be, but like your kind of opinion on that in general and what they can do and what you'd expect them to do. You said two guys. We kind of ranked the guys yesterday. I thought, Keenan Allen was more likely to stay. Steven thought that Joey Bosa was more likely to stay. What do you kind of think their options are heading into 2024?
Yeah, I think it honestly, to me, depends on what they do in the draft. I think they have to find a receiver replacement given that one of the receivers is gone. It's just tricky to me because I don't think drafting a receiver in the first round is going to impact them a lot this year. I would assume that if they do take a receiver in the first draft, whether I don't think Najigba is going to be there, it could be Quentin Johnston, it could be Addison. They're probably going to play over Palmer, but Palmer is like good enough where he's going to see snaps, right? So do you want in an all-in year, do you want to draft someone in the first round who's going to play maybe at most 70-60% of the snaps? And I think that answer is no. And I know we're talking about drafting an edge guy, and he's only going to play like 50-60% of the snaps. So it is a tricky situation. I do think I was wrong in that the receiver's completely off the table, but whoever they draft, it has to be a replacement to one of Keenan or Mike. And to me, I think it would be Mike Williams, just because I think Keenan, he does obviously have a better relationship with Herbert, and Telesco comes in the combine and says, we want Keenan Allen to be a Charger for life. Whether I don't know how much stock I put in that, but I do think I think it would be trickier to kind of find a Keenan replacement than someone who's more of the explosive receiver in Mike Williams. So I think it does depend on the draft, but I would kind of say Mike Williams is the guy that would be cut after 2023.
Yeah, I mean, at this time last year, after the Mike Williams contract was finished, we at least Tyler and I kind of agreed that Keenan was probably the one that would be on the Chargers for longer, just because I think his game will age better than Mike Williams' game, and we'll see what happens this year coming off of the hamstring injury. But I do think it's safer to say that Keenan probably is on this team for longer. So in terms of what we expected, right? Like, I don't think anybody really should have expected the Chargers to do these kind of 4 restructures, because that's never been the track record, right? Like, the track record has been like, we'll restructure a star who's absolutely going to be on the team down the road, and then we'll cut some guys, and that's how we'll free up cap space. Them doing this kind of restructure season was definitely unprecedented from Tom Telesco. And, obviously I think this kind of points to, like Arjun is saying, an all-in season again for the Chargers, which makes sense. Like, you don't go all in for 1 year and then, oh, it didn't work, we're kind of blowing up the ship now. So, they're going to continue to push the can down the road as much as that's not the right phrase, kick the can down the road, excuse me, as long as they can. So I don't think anybody should hold it against anybody who thought that they were not going to restructure all these 4 players, because we've never seen the Chargers do this kind of thing, like Arjun is saying.
Yeah.
All right. Just really quickly, we mentioned some of the moves specifically, Daron Payne getting extended by the Commanders today, Jalen Ramsey getting traded to the Dolphins. Really the one that will impact the Chargers is the Quincy Williams edition, which is something Brad Spielberger hinted out a few minutes ago. Quincy Williams was cut by somebody and then claimed by the Jets heading into the season, and they just gave him a 3-year, $18 million contract. And there's a lot of linebackers in this free agency group, including Drew Tranquill, including Kaiser White, and a bunch of other options here. So, Arjun, what's the immediate impact here from that Quincy Williams contract on the linebacker market?
Yeah, the immediate impact to me is if there's any linebacker that's as good, in your opinion, or better than Quincy Williams, they're not going to get less than, like, their agents are going to be pushing for at least $6 million. Like, $6 million is now the new floor for linebackers. So, what linebackers am I talking about? Like you talked about, Tranquill, Kaiser, someone like Azeez Al-Shaair, Alex Singleton, maybe, Jermaine Pratt, definitely, Van Der Esch, definitely, Okereke. Like, these guys are at least going to get $6 million compared to last year, where we saw guys like it was the person who signed with the Cardinals, Jordan. Why am I blanking?
The guy that left the Cardinals, or the guy that signed with them? Because they had
he signed with them last year. He signed for like a 4.5. It was like a 1-year deal. Whatever. But like last year, we definitely saw the linebacker market, kind of take a dip. But this year, it's definitely gone up. So any linebacker you think is as good or better than Quincy Williams, which there are a decent amount of free agency this year, they're definitely going to get at least $6 million and at least probably 2 years on their contract.
Yeah, so I'm just looking at the stat comparison. Not that it means everything, but Quincy Williams, or should I say Drew Tranquill, more pressures, more sacks, more tackles, more interceptions, better in coverage. So yeah. I don't know what your successful coverage over expected, whatever it is, rate shows for coverage, but by my estimation, go for it.
Williams was below expectations dating back to 2019. So definitely a lot of players who are better than him in this free agency class.
Is this potentially, I forget the name of the player who signed with the Jaguars. He got paid significantly more than someone like Kaiser White, who statistically was, I mean, Kaiser White was better last year. Is this a potential scenario where he's actually just sort of an outlier in this case? Or do we really feel like everyone's starting at 6 million?
I don't think Quincy's an out, or the Jags guy was definitely an outlier, but
Mhm.
you know, because he was definitely like more like an 11, $12 million guy, and getting to 15 was definitely a big step. But in terms of Quincy Williams, he definitely represents what the mid-market linebacker like market is. And I think
Mm.
that definitely impacts it more. I mean, Brad Spielberg at PFF only had him at like 2.5 million for 1 year. So getting to 6 million is a huge jump. Now there are a little bit of like there is a little bit of concessions given by the Jets. I think like when the Jets are a team that picked him up off of waivers and he plays two full seasons for them as a starting linebacker, like they're more inclined to give him a bigger deal than if he was to hit the open market. So those are things to keep in mind. Usually I think a team like who signs a UDFA is going to pay him more than a team that doesn't, pick him up. So it does impact it though a lot. And I think a lot of the mid-market linebackers will see at least $6 million like we talked about.
Sorry, before Steven jumps in, did Brad usually have Tranquil at 7.5 million a year, or was it 7 before?
Oh, he might have just updated it. It was at
yeah.
it was at 7. Is it showing 7.5?
Yeah, I'm looking at 3 years, 7.5 million average per year, 13.5 million guaranteed.
He must have like just updated it in the past minute because it showed 3.7 for me. But yeah, 7.5 makes sense. Yeah, I mean he had it lower initially, and then he kind of got some news there that made the contract jump up from like 5 to 7, and now it's at 7.5, which I think is reasonable. So we'll talk about it when we do the simulation, but it's a lot of money for Drew Tranquil that he's gonna get in free agency.
Yeah, it looks like he's going through it right now. I think I want to say David Long was 4 years, 9 million per year, and now he's up to 410. So I think I think Brad's doing some updating right now. So he said he's staying up until midnight to update his contract. So I respect the hustle there by Brad Spielberger. All right, so we're gonna, like I said, we're gonna do a simulation here on Over the Cap like we did a few weeks ago. So Arjun's gonna pull that up, and then we'll be able to run through some things, talk about the Chargers options here with the new cap space and freeing up some more ones as well. And then we'll be able to bring up some potential contracts that we're going to go through tonight. So again, this is, I think, very unique stuff. I think Arjun's one of the best in the business when it comes to contracts. So very excited to see what he's able to work in for the Chargers as they go through this all-in 2023 season.
All right, I should have my screen shared now. I'll put that up. All right, so let's just start off with where we are at. Chargers have about $19 million in cap space. This is not accounting for the rookie class and rollover cap. So again, we'll allocate about $4 million for rollover cap and about 3.5 for the rookie class. So take this 19, subtract 7.5. We're at about 11.5 million in spending for free agency, which is not a lot. But at the time, 7:15 p.m. Eastern on Sunday, they still haven't cut Matt Filer, which is interesting. I don't know if they're going to wait until free agency to do that. I'm looking at the wrong year. I don't know if they're going to wait until free agency to do that, but they could still save about $6.5 million if they cut Filer, which I don't know why they haven't done it yet. I feel like they want to let him get a start on his open market if he hits the open market. But I feel like after the restructures of the 4 players, I'm curious to hear your guys' thoughts. Like, do you think Filer stays on the team and they just have great depth with Sawyer as their swing tackle at this point?
I think he's still cut. I think you have just too good of a replacement there with Sawyer. I could see them. I think someone even DM'd me this, like suggesting that maybe they just want to triple check that they get Pipkins locked in first. But in addition to that, they cut Brian Bulaga the Tuesday before free agency officially kicked off last year. So it wouldn't. I mean, why wait? I don't really know. But at this point, like I do think he is gone.
Yeah, I tend to agree there. I think, Tom Telesco is going to want surplus value at some position group, and I think offensive line is the way to do that with, Jamari Sawyer being a starter there. So I tend to agree with Tyler. I think that they're going to wait and see if they're able to bring back Trey Pipkins by Wednesday. If they're not, maybe they hold on to Matt Filer at that point. But, you brought up a name that I'm sure we'll mention here. There are other free agent guards that they could sign for cheaper and get, the similar level of play than that Matt Filer, or they could draft a guy that I would feel comfortable with in terms of replacing him. So I still would expect him to get cut because they still need, like, you're only talking about $11.5 million right now in true spending space. And again, that could change. Maybe they restructure Sebastian Joseph Day or something like that, but they still need more space. So I still expect him to get cut.
All right. We'll make that move. Also think Dustin Hopkins is probably gone with just they could use a cap, and they have a replacement with Cameron Dicker. So sitting at about $20 million now in cap space, which is what's kind of enough, given that year one cap hits are going to be low for Tom Telesco if he signs external guys. So like the AP, it doesn't matter what the APY was, it's obviously the year one cap hit. So this is where we're at. I think this is kind of all the moves I think that would be made. I don't foresee Gerald Everett being cut. I don't foresee anyone else being restructured. I think they've made all the moves they needed to make, and now it's just freeing up some extra cap with Filer and Hopkins.
Yep, I agree.
Yeah. So one quick question here. Some people have said, obviously, that there are extensions that the Chargers will need to be getting done in order to preserve some depth. Obviously, Justin Herbert's extension is going to get done, but in terms of like Austin Eckler, Michael Davis, those kind of extensions, what kind of time frame do you think we're looking at? And this is for both of you guys. Either one of you can jump in. It's not necessarily like an immediate need, but I'm more so asking because like those would free up cap space for like down the road. Maybe that lets the Chargers be a little bit more aggressive right now with their budget, because then the space that they get from those contracts could be the rollover cap, stuff like that. Where do you think we're at in terms of those two contract extensions being on the table, off the table, wherever you guys want to head in that direction?
No comment.
I would be shocked if they haven't started or even like come close to those discussions yet, like those talks yet. In terms of Michael Davis and Austin Eckler, like, one of them is probably going to get extended at some point, just because, they're the two guys where you can free up cap if you extend them. And, Eckler's kind of hitting that point where you don't really want to pay him a lot of money, but like he was still very productive last year in certain like high leverage situations. And Michael Davis obviously coming off one of the best years of his career. So those are the two guys, who would get extended. And I think they probably have had those discussions. I just don't think the talks will continue at this point. They're probably done with them. And the only kind of way they'll start bringing them back up is maybe even like next week, where, a lot of free agents have signed, and now we're getting into that second wave of free agents, and maybe Chargers want to go after some bargain guys and they just need the extra $2 or $3 million. And that's where the extension for Michael Davis or Austin Eckler could come in.
Yeah, I know Brad put in his, I can't remember if it was you and Brad doing it together. There was an article, I seem to remember, that it was like how to solve the cap situation of Team X or whatever. And, he included the Austin Eckler extension in there. And I think that would be a valuable resource. So with Michael Davis, and I think those are both players who, deserve that kind of contract extension. So do we want to put those in here, or do we want to kind of leave them aside for this episode?
I think we should put one of them in there.
Yeah, I think we could put one of them.
Because Brad suggested it, let's put in the Austin Eckler extension.
Yeah. Okay, so I think we talked about this in one of the videos we made, but I would expect the Austin Eckler deal to be kind of short, probably around like 2 years. I think is reasonable, and he's gonna get a pay bump. I don't think it's gonna be that significant. Probably like, I think 2 years, $10 million would be decent enough. I'm pretty sure I put together an Eckler extension on one of my docs. Let me just see if I have it. I don't, unfortunate. But yeah, it would be like 2 years, 10 million. I think it's a signing bonus of like maybe like $6 or $7 million. I'll go high just because they've given more signing bonuses than most. Doing this and then converting, let's say like 4 million of this to a roster bonus in this year, and then they keep this number low, and then obviously this number doesn't really matter. He's probably going to get cut by this time. So this is what like this would do, and you would save, I think, about $2 or $3 million if you do this. If that makes sense.
Yeah.
Okay. So you do that. Your cap space goes up by like about 1.7. I that was obviously me just freelancing there, but you would save
Nice.
about $2 to $3 million if you extend Austin Eckler.
Cool.
There we go. All right, so we'll do some internal free agents here first and foremost. Obviously, the Chargers have the big three. We talked a little bit about Drew Tranquill's market here. Lindsey Theory did report yesterday that the Chargers are expected to lose Drew Tranquill to free agency. He actually went on NFL Network and was basically like, I'm out of here earlier this week. So unfortunately, I do think that Drew Tranquill will not be back on the Chargers going forward. Arjun and Tyler, do you tend to agree there?
Yeah, that's kind of where I felt. I believe the other two of the big three are the priority.
I didn't hear the Tranquill going on air and saying he's gone. Was that?
It was on NFL Network. It was like one of like the later broadcasts that it was, their like lesser like C tier group of reporters were on there. I don't even know the guy's name who was hosting it. And they were like asking him like, hey, like, what's your mindset, of free agency? And he's like, yeah, I'm really excited to see where this takes me and like the next step for the family. And like, we've loved LA, but we're like, basically saying like, I'm not coming back here. I'm out of here.
Yeah.
So, and I do think that with this Quincy Williams contract, that was kind of like nail in the coffin that Drew Tranquill is not coming back.
Yeah.
All right, we can do like a Trey Pipkins extension or a new contract, because I think that's probably the most likely given everything that's happened. So I actually do have his deal ready at hand. So the deal that I've kind of predicted for Pipkins, I think, as a quality tackle who's kind of had a pretty good year last year, I think he'll get about 7.5 million in APY. So let me just fill. We'll do a $6.75 million signing bonus.
And for what it's worth for our audio audience, while Arjun works this in, Brad Spielberger has Trey getting a $6.75 million per year contract, which basically is a 3-year, 20.25 total contract. So I think Arjun is, I would say that Arjun is right in terms of the home team having to pay a little bit more to keep that player around. So I think that would make a lot of sense for the Chargers and for his price tag.
Yeah, so low year one cap hit for Trey, 3.75. I think that's pretty standard. So yeah, that would cost 3.75 on the 2023 cap. Next, I guess we could talk about Morgan Fox. I think I'm gonna pass that on to you guys and let you guys kind of handle what the situation is with him.
Yeah, it's the second most irreplaceable pending free agent. I think that, given some discussion, I do think that like they are going to try to make this work. And I think now you do 4 restructures for some reason, like I just think it's worth it to them. And he's a Staley guy and he's productive. And frankly, you could envision him actually even outperforming that current contract, whatever he ends up getting, because he wasn't that full-time starter necessarily last year. I think they can make him a bit more of a starter this year. I just think you have to keep this going. You can't replace him. You can't replace him. He's on the team this year. I have to believe it.
Steven?
I lean towards Fox being priced out personally. I think that what he does is too valuable, and him getting 40 pressures and 6 sacks this past year is in line with a number that I think the Chargers would not be able to go out and do. Whether that market is sustainable for him outside of the Chargers, I don't know. But I look at all of these interior pass rushers that are on the market. I think everybody is essentially getting a pay bump, and Deron Payne getting his contract done isn't necessarily going to affect Morgan Fox's deal, but I do think that it does affect the market overall. So I think Morgan would have to take a pay cut in terms of his market to stick around with the Chargers personally.
I'm with you. I don't think the Chargers would go higher than like $5 million. I think my projection was like 4.5 million for him, which I think, is a solid pay bump from getting, the 40 pressures, kind of being the most reliable guy on that interior. I think he probably gets a little bit more than that. Again, like interior pass rushers are kind of hard to find, and unless you have one of the elite ones, you're probably not going to get someone as consistent as Fox. So I do lean that he does get priced out of LA. But I'm with you, Tyler. Like, I just don't think he's replaceable. And like you look at like some of the like mid-market interior defensive alignment, it's a lot of run stuffers. Like there's not a lot of like pass rushing guys. Like you have guys like Greg Gaines, Taven Bryant, like Dean Lowry. The only true like pass rushing interior guy outside of Fox is like Jerry Tillery, but we all know he's not.
He's a top 3 player. He's got 25 pressures for someone under 28.
That tweet, oh my gosh, I couldn't believe that got sent out.
But yeah, I think Fox unfortunately is gone, and I don't know how they're going to replace him. Honestly, like it's going to be tough because they like outside of him, they don't have any pass rushing interior guys. So I don't know, but like I do think he's gone. So I lean not to kind of put a contract out for him.
Yeah, and for what it's worth, as Eddie Bruin points out, Morgan Fox's wife did make an Instagram reel, which was basically kind of like a goodbye video too. Again, that's his wife. Like, who knows? But I just like I think his market will price himself out of the Chargers' ability to pay him. So I think maybe this kind of means you could talk yourself into Kyle Van Noy coming back. I don't know where you guys stand on that one, but I think of the big 3, I think Pipkins is probably the only one that does come back.
What is Kyle Van Noy's market even like? What is his projection?
I think Brad has him at 3.25 or 3.5.
Yeah, 3.5, I think.
I mean, it's financially, I guess, more responsible. I hope that doesn't prevent them from going and get an edge rusher early on this year.
Yeah, I mean, Matt could play linebacker like he was supposed to do as well if you're losing Drew Tranquil. So I don't know if he would want to do that, but
I didn't even know he pays someone for that.
So outside of those 3, I mean, we could talk about some of the like restricted free agents. I think Jalen Guyton comes back. I don't know if that prevents them from taking or signing another speed guy in free agency or taking one in round 1 of the draft or round 2 or 3. But I think his kind of speed adds a different dynamic to the offense, and like they definitely missed him last year. So I think they would just. It's tough because I don't like 2.6 million is a lot for Jalen Guyton. So I don't really know how they would work that deal, but I definitely think he should be brought back given his. Is that
just the basic restricted free agent tender?
Yeah.
I would pursue a deal with him. Does it have to be a 2-year deal?
Yeah, I think so. I'm honestly like not too clear with the restricted free agent market, but I would assume that if they don't tender him, like there's no reason why Guyton would take anything less. It just doesn't make sense. Like he would take less than the tender on a 1-year deal, but it's tricky. I should have done my research on that before.
No, that's okay.
Fine. I have no idea.
I would say that because of his injury, the Chargers would not commit to that kind of price tag.
The tender, you mean?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think he's someone that they kind of circle back to because when is he even supposed to return? Is he cleared to play by the time season starts?
If he tore his ACL in September, you're probably looking at like best case scenario, he's ready for week 1. like fully 100% up to speed. So I think he would probably start training camp on the pup list and then go from there.
Is there a deadline to tender a player? And if they pass that deadline, can they just sign him to a 1-year deal?
I would imagine the tenders have to be done before Wednesday, right?
Yeah, no, it is. I think it's either Wednesday or a couple days before or after Wednesday, March 15th. Yeah,
Okay,
so by Wednesday. Okay. I think the Chargers don't even have to tender him. They can just like let him hit the open market and like sign him back to like a veteran minimum
That's
deal.
what I think.
They can just do this. Basically, that's what DeAndre Carter got. I think he's back, even if he isn't able to like go through OTAs and everything. I think he probably comes back on like something like this.
Yeah, no, we've heard two people, one person internally, and then Eckler go out on the show and say, Jalen Guyton, like they mentioned Jalen Guyton. We miss Jalen Guyton. We want Jalen Guyton. So
yeah,
I'm not saying that that's going to be their solution to the speed problem, but I do think he's not going to get some extravagant deal anywhere else. He's hurt. He's going to get a very, very inexpensive deal, I think, back with the Chargers. And kind of like Keenan Allen, you make Justin Herbert happy. And if Justin Herbert wants Jalen Guyton out there, I think Jalen Guyton will be there.
Yeah. So we can pencil him back. I think from what I've been told, the Chargers are, in terms of the tender guys, the only ones that they're certain of tendering to come back are Cameron Dicker and Donald Parham. I think Dicker is a no-brainer, especially if you're talking about cutting Dustin Hopkins. I would speculate that the Chargers would probably keep Hopkins and then have a competition and then have a later Dustin Hopkins cut, give them some space for the season. But I'm pretty confident that Dicker and Parham will be back, and then everybody else is just kind of, unfortunately for some fan favorites out there, let them hit the market and kind of see what happens.
Yeah, I think Donald Parham gets a deal, not a tender.
Okay, so we're gonna extend him. What do you think of one like a? I think so the Juwan deal, the Juwan Johnson deal by the Saints is very interesting. I'm not saying
I would say something similar to that. Yeah.
Well, I definitely don't think Parham gets $6 million APY, but it would.
No, I mean, like, sorry, I should have clarified. I mean, in terms of like giving him an actual like 2-year deal and not the price tag.
Yeah. So I think, so in terms of Parham, right? Like, what do you guys think his market is in terms of like APY?
Your guess is as good as mine, Arjun.
Okay, because I mean, like I said, Juwan got 2 years, $12 million, so he got $6 million APY, which obviously I don't think Parham has produced even close to what Juwan has to get that. Juwan also got a $5 million signing bonus, which is extremely high, but that's also a way for the Saints to kind of spread money around and use void years. So I think reasonable signing bonus, probably like $3 million, spread that across 2 years.
Just looking at like Brad's list, like you look at somebody like a Josh Oliver, like he's kind of the blocking tight end for the Ravens. Brad has him at 3.5 APY. Mercedes Lewis, obviously an older veteran, but he's at 3.25. Robert Tonyan's at 5 per year. So I would imagine we're talking about like $3 million ish for Donald Parham.
Yeah. Okay. 3 million. I'm too high there. Way too high. Something like this. Let me just check my numbers real quick. This is a little bit higher. So if I do like that, that comes out to about 3 million a year, which I think is reasonable.
Yeah, I think so.
Okay.
That's about $1 million-ish a year over the tender.
It would be I think it's the same as, let me just find. Yeah, it would be. It's actually less this year than the tender, and then next year it'd be like a little bit more, but it's reasonable for Parham.
Yeah, I think so.
But I think the Chargers would have incentive to do a 2-year deal with him because Gerald Everett is a free agent after this season. And I don't think you would want the tight end room heading into 2024 to be a rookie if you draft one and Trey McKitty and that's it. Like, I think having Donald Parham around for 2 years would give them at least some stability for 2024, depending on what happens with that, supposed draft pick player that could be coming later.
Yeah, I'm with you.
All right. I do think J.K. Scott would be back for what it's worth.
Yeah, let's do that.
Definitely could be a wait and see thing, but Ryan Ficken specifically chose him. I think that's kind of a no-brainer contract there. And I would say Troy Reeder as well would be a definite bring back because you're losing Drew Tranquill.
Yeah, if Tranquil's gone, Reeder has to be back. There's no reason not to.
Yeah, I'm just double checking if Reeder got a veteran minimum this year, because I don't think he probably didn't do much to get anything more than that. Even though when he was on the field, there were some good plays, I would say. Yeah, he got a veteran minimum, so maybe see a little bit of a bump to come back, but I think he just gets it again. So,
all right. Anybody else internal that you guys would say should be coming back? I think Will Clapp potentially. I mean, they kept Brendan Nugent around, and Will Clapp was kind of his guy, so I wouldn't necessarily rule Will Clapp coming back as the backup center.
I don't see why not. Again, we're not getting a starting caliber player here, but it's a backup. He's a backup for a reason, and so I think that, yeah, good point. Because I was thinking of Will Clapp more in terms of Lombardi, but you bring up Nugent, well, that makes a lot more sense. So I would have not considered that before.
Yeah, I mean, and I'm going to assume all of these are going to be like 1-year deals. Just go all in for 2023.
Yeah,
rebuild everything if necessary in 2024. So, okay, so now we're at about 15, 16 million or 14 million after accounting for draft and in-season stuff. I think we could move on to external players. Based on this, again, one player I've really, really liked is Okoronkwo. Agbania, he goes by like Obo, by like the phone guys. Nate Tice really likes him, which I think is a good sign, even though I'll base stuff on my own opinions. But
sure,
he's one of those guys where it's like he's never really gotten a chance to be in a full-time role. And I think if he is able to get that full-time role, he would be productive. I do think he'll be a little bit pricey, but I think the value he adds in the pass rushing department will be more than what Kyle Van Noy did, definitely more than what Chris Rumpf did. And he's a solid, not great run defender. But I could definitely see, the Chargers making a run at him, given that he played in Staley's scheme in 2020 with the Rams.
Yeah, he was somebody that I was interested in signing last year. Brad has him pretty high. Brad has him as his 56th best free agent, and getting a 2-year, 5.5 APY deal. So, if the Chargers are looking to upgrade their pass rush, and I think they should, getting a player like this would make some sense. He had a 22.9 pass rush win rate last year. So he's somebody I think would be very interesting for them. And we'll see what happens if that means. I would imagine that doesn't mean edge rusher's kind of off the board in the first few rounds, but he would make some sense. I think also another guy that played under Staley in Denver, DeMarcus Walker, would make some sense for them.
Yeah.
So Arjun, you kind of think that they're going to go out and maybe try and upgrade over Kyle Van Noy in the free agency market, maybe get somebody younger too?
Yeah, I think they could. And it's tricky because, again, like, I don't think they want to be in a spot where like they need to draft an edge 3 in the first couple of rounds, and like doing this would allow them to be more flexible with who they take. But yeah, I think, like you said, DeMarcus Walker. I think Malik Reed is also a very interesting name that he has ties to the Denver, with the Broncos when Staley was there. So yeah, definitely, I would think Staley's going to hit up his connections, former players, to go get a guy that is going to back up Joey and Mac. I just really like Obo just because I think he's very productive when he's on the field and pass rushing. So this is kind of what a deal would look like, I think, for him. 6.5 in fully guaranteed money, about 6.5 in fully guaranteed money, 6.5 APY, and then could potentially cut him after this year if he doesn't play well.
No, I agree with that, and I think that checks a lot of boxes for them. And this is kind of what we wanted them to do last year. Eventually, they did it with Kyle Van Noy, but I think that would give them some flexibility. So we can pencil that one. How do you feel about that, Tyler? I should ask you first.
I'll be honest. I'd rather just pay Morgan Fox similar money and draft an edge rusher.
Yeah.
So I kind of would hope that this is not the case, to be honest. And he's a free agent I brought up. Don't get me wrong. Like I'm gonna kill this name, Okoronkwo. I'm so sorry. I'll figure it out if you're signed to the team. Usually I'm good about this, but
Yeah.
if you're paying someone that much, I'd rather just pay Morgan Fox and draft an edge rusher, considering the draft. So I really hope that's not the case. But I do think that them finding an edge rusher at some point in free agency is fine, and they do have a little bit of money to make that work.
Yeah. Sticking with that, the Brandon Staley connection here. There's a bunch of Rams defensive backs that are free agents. I tweeted about some of them today. Obviously, there's Taylor Rapp. He's kind of, in terms of what Brad would project his market, he'd be the bigger contract. Brad has him at 3 years, $7 million APY. Nick Scott is an interesting name for me. I think he really loves playing for Raheem Morris, so he might stay in Los Angeles. And then there's David Long too. So let's talk about that kind of world in terms of some potential defensive back help, because I do think the Chargers certainly need some safety depth in particular. Heading into the season with Derwin and Alohi and JT Woods and Raheem Lane doesn't really feel very ideal for me. So Tyler, we'll start with you. Any defensive back help stand out to you that we could be looking at here?
I do kind of think we should be looking at Taylor Rapp, and I don't think being a 3rd round pick last year will save you and force you into that spot. Yeah. I'm sure they wanted JT Woods to develop into that, but I feel like that did not happen, and it didn't happen throughout the course of the season at all. And yes, he's a 3rd round pick, the 2nd pick they had in the draft. You'd like to see him get there. I don't think he will. And I think in an all-in season, you can't say, all right, we'll wait till September to see if JT Woods panned out. Now, maybe they trust Alohi Gilman for that spot, and I would sort of get that, but still, I feel like they want to upgrade at that position. They've been trying, like they tried different things last year, benching Nasir Adderley, playing Alohi Gilman. They drafted JT Woods. They tried Raheem Lane a couple of times, just in minor roles. I don't know, nothing really ever stuck outside of Derwin James, obviously. So I think Taylor Rapp is a strong consideration here. I think in an all-in year, it sort of makes sense. I think this would be kind of their signing. And just for what it's worth, he's also Asian. So I'm all for it.
I do think John Johnson also a name to be considered here. Brad only has him at a 1 year, $5 million deal. So maybe that's more of the Chargers style here, especially as they're trying to maybe get some value signings here. So Arjun, where are you at with like this kind of conversation in terms of some safety help?
Yeah, it's tricky because I think Taylor Rapp's a little bit pricey. I don't think they need to pay that much for a safety. It's ideally JT Woods takes over for Nasir and that's it. And like you just need depth, but at this point, it sounds like you need someone who can be like a potential starter. And for me, that does kind of rule out like some of the guys who are like more box safeties. I think John Johnson's like pretty versatile, but he got worse when he was in Cleveland. And you always want to buy the dip on coverage players. So I wouldn't mind the John Johnson thing, but also think 5.5 million's like a little bit high for him. But I really wouldn't mind signing him. So I honestly like a 1 year deal for 5.5 million would not be like too bad. They could use void years to kind of push the signing bonus into future years and just spread some of that money out. So I'm cool with like putting him in, but I don't know if you guys see that happening also.
Yeah, I mean, he was definitely the better player under Staley. I think Taylor Rapp is I think $7 million for Taylor Rapp. I'd rather have $5 million on John Johnson to be completely honest. John Johnson obviously has the signal-caller relationship with Staley specifically, and Brandon Staley has talked a lot about that. It didn't necessarily work in Cleveland because I think the Browns really penciled him in like exclusively as a free safety. Mm-hmm. So I think him getting back to Staley would make a lot of sense. I mean, we've seen that, just this past year with Morgan Fox and what that can do for him. So of the two, I would say John Johnson probably feels more likely, but I wouldn't necessarily rule out a Taylor Rapp deal, especially they just hired his position coach in the secondary too. So in a vacuum, I would rather do the deal with John Johnson than Rapp personally. I think Rapp and Alohi are kind of redundant. I think John Johnson will be a little bit more versatile.
Yeah, and sort of for what it's worth, different position now, but they did obviously bring in Jeff Howard, who would have worked with John Johnson before. So
exactly. I'm not sure why the cap's being a little bit weird with this contract. Like the prorated bonus just not adding up for some reason. Like I don't know why this isn't. Okay, it doesn't really matter because we're only looking at 2023 basically. So we do 3 million here. But yeah, this would put us at about $9 million left. Filled edge depth, filled safety depth. I think what would be next would probably be either looking for an RB2 or like another running back, which I don't know if they do that. Filling out some of the guard depth, assuming that Salyer moves to left guard and you kind of need another guy there. So I know we talked about Evan Brown being a potential guy. I was curious if you guys kind of agreed with that.
Who dat?
So Evan Brown played for the Lions. He was kind of their swing interior offensive player. So, he played center. He played some guard for the Lions over the past couple of years. I think he would certainly, fill that position flex kind of role, similar to how Will Clapp could as well. And he's a veteran. He started a lot of games. So I think they do need a swing guy. I think that might come in the draft. They do need a swing offensive tackle. So I think, however, the Chargers want to approach this, essentially, you would either sign a swing tackle and draft a swing guard, or sign a swing guard and then draft a swing tackle. Yeah. I don't know if that changes your opinion here at all. I think for me, like Cameron Fleming would be probably my choice for swing tackle. He's probably a bit pricier than what you're talking about for an Evan Brown kind of player.
Yeah.
But I'm cool with either one. I do expect them to get some help here on the offensive line in general.
I think a swing tackle or guard would probably cost them about $2 to $3 million. So that's what I was kind of projecting for Evan Brown, where it would just be something like this, probably fully guaranteed. So he has an incentive to come here. But I think they have to go get some O-line depth. Not that it hurt them like too much last year, because they stayed relatively healthy at times. I think they had 1 or 2 games where Sorrell was starting a tackle, but obviously swing tackles are extremely hard to find. So I wouldn't expect them to go break the bank for anyone, because they just don't have that room right now.
That makes sense to me. I'm cool with that. I haven't looked a ton at guard, so I'm cool with that. I think that certainly checks a lot of boxes for the Chargers. All right, so next here, I think we probably have to go back to the defensive line. Get a cheaper option there. Arjun, I brought up A'Shawn Robinson last year. Again, another Staley guy I think would make some sense. Mm-hmm. He's not necessarily a pass rusher, but I think they do need some insurance in case Otito and Austin Johnson are not ready to start the season and coming off of their injuries. He seems like kind of a more value free agent. But in terms of defensive line, had you thought of anybody that you wanted to bring up, Arjun?
I think A'Shawn's someone I looked at also. He would be pretty cheap. He's going to be 28 years old next year, but yeah, he is mostly a run stopper. But that doesn't matter as much, because like you said, Otito is coming off that season-ending injury, so they could always use depth there. Jaron Reed from the Packers could be interesting. He's more of a pass rushing interior guy, but like he's had a couple of subpar years the past couple of years, so I don't know if he's someone I'd want to go get. Greg Gaines is someone that I feel like Jordan Rodriguez and Nate Tice, Robert Mays always talk about with that Rams defense, and like how he fits very well next to Aaron Donald. So I think he could be an interesting name. And obviously, Staley's worked with him in the past. And then finally, I kind of like Shy Tuttle. He's more of a rotational guy, but I feel like anytime I watch the Saints, it's always, undrafted free agent, Shy Tuttle making a play here. And, I think he's been sort of productive for the Saints. So those are some of the names, but I do like A'Shawn, and he would probably cost, about like 2.5 mil.
Stephen, what did Brad have him at?
Shy Tuttle?
Robinson.
Oh, sorry. Shy Tuttle, he has at 2 years, $4 million APY for what it's worth.
Robinson's 1 year, 2.5.
Yeah. So once you get past that Morgan Fox, Matt Ioannidis realm, you're talking about generally like 1 year, 2.5, 3 year contracts. Jaron Reed is 2 years, 3 APY for what it's worth. Greg Gaines, 2 for 3. Taven Bryan's 2 for 4. Kalen Saunders, although he's more kind of a nose. They could do the Akeem Hicks thing again if they wanted to, although he kind of missed a lot of games last year again. So that's not necessarily something I'd be super interested in. Shy Tuttle, for what it's worth, he does grade out better as a run defender than a pass rusher. He had 10 pressures, 3 sacks last year. So not necessarily a pass rushing guy. I feel like more of a mini Austin Johnson kind of thing.
But yeah, we can do Robinson. So I'll put this in. I saw a comment saying the Chargers are going to go the Draymond Jones route. Look, Alden, Draymond Jones is going to get $18 million a year from whatever team throws the bag at him. The Chargers, you know, they've already gave 4 veteran contracts to guys on their defensive line. I'd be shocked if they even like attempted to call his agent. So I definitely don't think, I think you shouldn't you shouldn't be thinking about Draymond Jones at this point.
No, 100% would rather have Morgan Fox at his price tag than Draymond Jones.
Another name, Steven, Berrios?
Oh, Braxton Berrios?
Yeah, we haven't sent a returner back yet, so.
Oh, yeah, that's a good point. Now, I don't believe Brad has a projection up for him. I didn't even think about him because obviously he just got cut. I can just double check though. Brad's always good with updating. Yeah, I don't think he has Berrios up there, but Berrios, I think he signed like a 3-year, $12 million deal, if I remember correctly. Now that he got cut, he's definitely going to get less from a team that pays him on the open market. So just so I get this correct. Oh, he signed a 2-year, $12 million. Okay, that's a lot. So Berrios would definitely cost a little bit. I think, again, if we're talking 1-year deals, something like $3.5 million, just because, again, you got a lot from the Jets for something. So that was
coming off of that was after his first team All-Pro nomination. So, they paid a premium for their returner. He was averaging 30 yards a kickoff return and 13 yards per punt return at that time. Yeah, and I think he had like 450 yards receiving that year. So. Jets definitely paid a premium for him.
Chargers, I don't think Chargers would or should give him that much. DeAndre Carter only got 1 year. It was a veteran minimum, so I think something like this could work. I don't know if they'd pay this much for just a returner though, and to be wide receiver 4 or even 5 heading into next year.
Yeah, I do think that they're going to try and upgrade over what DeAndre Carter gave them as a returner. I wouldn't necessarily be shocked to see Carter come back, but they can't run back an 18 yards per average kickoff return guy again. So
was it 18 in the end? Good Lord.
Yeah, it was really bad, and they were consistently all throughout the season. They were consistently top 15 DVOA and pretty much everything, and then kickoff return was always 28, 29, 30.
Mm-hmm.
It was bad, and not all of that is DeAndre Carter's fault, right? But,
right.
I do think that Ryan Ficken's going to look at that and say, hey, whether that's through the draft or through free agency, remains to be seen. But I'd be pretty surprised if DeAndre Carter is returning kicks again next year.
All right, I'll lock this in. I don't really. It's tough to gauge his price, but I think this would probably be a decent number.
Mm-hmm.
For what it's worth, I think I've seen some people talk about this. Keyshawn Nixon, the corner from the Packers. He was just first team All-Pro as a kickoff returner, so I think he would be a little bit too pricey. But people have asked me about him after I talked about Braxton Berrios yesterday, so just wanted to mention that I think Nixon's probably a little out of their range.
Yeah, no, I'm with you, and I don't think Bisaccia lets them leave Green Bay, to be honest.
Also that. All right, so after agreeing to deals here in the simulation with Braxton Berrios, A'Shawn Robinson, Evan Brown, John Johnson, and Ogbonia Okoronkwo, and then bringing back Will Cap, Troy Reeder, J.K. Scott, Donald Parham, Jalen Guyton, and Trey Pipkins. The Chargers have $12 million in cap space, which would essentially be about $5 million left in spending space. So we're running out of time here, but Tyler, anybody else you wanted to bring up here?
Bobby Wagner. No. I could. I think there's a world where maybe they look at another running back to be brought in, kind of like Arjun was mentioning. I don't know who that would be.
Yeah.
But that's like $1 million, $2 million here and there. So as far as this goes, in terms of the spots they needed to fill, I think they got most of it. And I'm glad that we went more of a depth, solid route than just like one dude.
Yeah, I think after, again, this Quincy Williams deal, it hurts the Chargers in several fronts, because if they were serious about Bobby Wagner, now you're talking about, Brad has him as a 1-year deal, but now you're talking about Bobby Wagner probably on like a 1-year, $10 million contract, maybe, I would assume, is kind of where he'd be at. Drew Tranquil becomes more expensive. So that Quincy Williams contract hurts the Chargers in several fronts. I think because of that, they would just, hey, we'll do the Troy Reader thing again, and then we'll draft another linebacker. I could see a running back too, because I do think you have to have 2 quality guys to run Kellen Moore's offense, in my opinion. So Arjun, was there a running back that maybe kind of stood out to you as a potential fit here?
It's a very good question. Honestly,
Nate Tice, sorry to interrupt you. Nate Tice floated the Jamal Williams thing.
I hated that. I was gonna say,
okay.
I hated that so much.
I think he's going to be a Jet after they get Aaron Rodgers. Personally,
Williams is a hilarious guy. He's a great character, a great teammate. He has so many touchdowns from the 1-yard line. He's not explosive at all. He was very inefficient behind one of the best offensive lines in football. Like, that's a very hard pass for me. Someone like, okay, you guys will probably hate this, Raheem Mostert. Just give me some explosiveness in that backfield. Sure. I don't care if he's injured or not. Like, we have we have decent depth with Joshua Kelly, but just give me explosiveness. That's all I care about at this point.
No, I think that would make some sense. If Shane Day had stuck around, I would definitely be somebody I would be talking about. But I do think that running back makes a lot of sense. I think, you don't really know what you have in these guys still, as much as we all would hope Joshua Kelly takes that step forward. Tyler mentioned Samaje Perine yesterday, and I think that's somebody that would make some sense too. But I'm cool with Mostert. I'm cool with Jeff Wilson. Mm-hmm. Sounds like Devin Singletary might not have a huge market. That might be a guy I'd be interested in. Some people have some. Sorry,
I didn't even realize he's a free agent. Those 4 years with Buffalo flew by.
Yeah, they're interested in Jamal Williams too, supposedly. And I think I saw that they're interested in David Montgomery. So they've tried to upgrade from him for years, and obviously they drafted James Cook last year, so they got to figure out what they have in him. Nyheim Hines is still on that roster. So I'm cool with Raheem Mostert. Anybody more expensive than that, I don't necessarily think the Chargers would do. Like Kareem Hunt, I can't really see. Deontay Foreman. So, yeah, I'm cool with Raheem Mostert.
I haven't even looked at running back free agents.
We didn't really talk about running backs yesterday, but I think they need a reliable guy there to bring in some depth.
All right, I can add this in, and then probably wrap up at that point.
Cool. Sounds good.
So I think his market would probably be this around that.
Solo Man said Rex Burkhead so he doesn't kill us. That'd be hilarious, honestly.
While Arjun's doing that, Steven, do you want to answer this one just real quick from Richard?
Oh, yeah. Super chat from Richard Mazara. I hope I said that right. He said, you and many other podcasters pounded the table for J.C. Jackson as a free agent signing last year. Now he's viewed as a huge bust. What went wrong, and how do we avoid that in the future? The easy answer is obviously his health took a turn that nobody really expected. Obviously he had the foot surgery that led to him missing time, and then coming back too early, and then obviously he had the knee injury here. We'll see what happens with him, but I think how do you avoid this in the future is really doing your research on a medical front from a player's history, because supposedly the foot injury was something he played through, and really only like the Patriots knew about it. And for whatever reason, the Chargers didn't necessarily know about it. So I think first and foremost, you have to properly vet somebody's health, because that foot issue directly led to his subpar play, which probably also led to the injury, after that.
Yeah, it's unfortunate. Like you said, do due diligence, and then maybe if the pressure to win cannot be too great. So if he's truly not ready, do not rush him all the way back against the Chiefs, for example. And if you do play him against the Chiefs in week 2 after getting hurt, don't also, what are you guys laughing about? Yeah, but make him play every snap. Yeah, what are you laughing at, guys?
Just don't rush him out back against the best offense in the league.
Yeah, no, I was laughing at your comment. I wasn't laughing at something else. But JC Jackson, we'll see that. I've seen some people talk about like restructuring his contract. I think you want to leave that contract as is and preserve a potential out down the road. And ideally he comes back, at least to most of his former self. So I think like the pounding the table thing for him, like all of the numbers checked out. Like he was great in man coverage. He was great in zone coverage. The Chargers had a need. I think you can play a lot of what ifs there, but I think like in terms of going out and taking a swing at corner, I think the logic was sound. For me, this is just like you need to do a much better job vetting a player's medical history before you invest this kind of contract in somebody. So if they had known about this foot issue heading into free agency, there's no way they would have done that deal. So I think this is a lesson in doing more medical history vetting, in my opinion. All right. So just kind of recapping here, Chargers obviously re-signing Trey Pipkins in this scenario. I do think that does ultimately happen. And then we had them bringing in Raheem Mostert, Braxton Berrios, A'Shawn Robinson, Evan Brown, John Johnson, Ogbonia Okoronkwo, bringing back Will Clapp, Donald Parham, Jalen Guyton, J.K. Scott, and Cameron Dicker. I don't think I missed anybody, did I? And Troy Reader, excuse me. I did miss somebody. Tyler, how do you feel about this simulation before we head out?
I think not bringing back Morgan Fox is a mistake, and I still think they're going to do it. But overall, I do feel good about this because we're addressing not just one player at one spot. That's not why the Chargers, lost to the Jaguars. That's not why they didn't, perform above expectations. There's several different pieces that they need, and it's not just a one-player thing. So I'm glad we looked at several options, not just one.
Arjun, and your final thoughts here on our simulation.
Yeah, I think we did a good enough job kind of filling some of those holes. Again, it does seem like 2023 is the all-in year, so I think we're going to see a lot more one-year contracts than we did last year. Last year I think we saw a lot of multi-year deals with a lot of great guarantees. I also wouldn't be surprised if Chargers don't make any moves in day one, like either Monday or Tuesday. Like this could just be like a wait and see, like see how the market plays out. See, if Trey Pipkins is allowed to hit the market and report back what his APY is, like, do they want to match it? I think they will be a little bit more patient than they were last year, where they signed JC, Joseph Day, and Austin Johnson in one day, right? So I think we won't see a lot of deals early on, but I think Chargers will kind of be signing some of these mid-tier guys to a lot of one-year deals.
That's a fun comment in the chat. I say we get rid of Sebastian, Johnson, and Morgan and bring in a higher graded DT. Yeah, let's just blow up the defensive line 2 years in a row. I love that idea. No, in all seriousness, I think this is the approach that the Chargers should take. I think an early swing on obviously Trey Pipkins, an early swing on a pass rusher would make some sense, and then you wait it out like Arjun is saying. So again, hopefully you guys enjoyed this simulation. I do think the Chargers being patient, doing 1 year deals like Arjun's saying is probably the smart approach here. So that's going to do it for us tonight. We're going to go live on Wednesday. We'll see if anything happens at that point. We'll have a recap ready for you that day, and then we'll just kind of play it by ear this week like we did last year. So we'll keep you guys posted on all future shows. Tyler, Arjun, thank you guys. Everybody in the chat, thank you for tuning in tonight. And as always, if you are listening to this, please make sure we leave a rating and a review. We always appreciate all of that positive feedback, and we'll see you guys next time.